Let's see the exception hierarchy in Java. All the exception classes are subclasses of the class throwable. And we know that in Java, every class is a subclass of object. So at the top of the hierarchy is the object, and just below that there is the throwable class. So under throwable, exceptions and error are two classes which are subclasses of the throwable class. That is why we said that all exceptions are subclasses of the throwable class. And under the exceptions, there are checked exceptions and unchecked exceptions, many types of exceptions. All such exceptions are subclasses of the class exceptions. And there are something called errors. Errors are subclasses of the class called error, and errors are handled by the Java runtime system. And it can be handled by the JRE only. So now we can see an example program where how the exception is thrown. You can see the class throw except and the main method in which string str is declared to be null, and you are trying to print str.length. Actually it is str is null and you are trying to access the length of the null value, and that causes an exception because it is null. You are trying to do an operation with a value which is null, so which will cause an exception, and that is why here exception arises and you are not handling the exception, just it is handled by the default handler because you have not written any code to handle the exception. So what happens is you get the output exception in thread main java.lang.null pointer exception. It is null pointer exception because it is null, and it thrown by the class throws at the main. So this is what happens when an exception occurs and when it is not handled, and because it is handled by the default handler you get the output like this. So next we shall see another program where it shows how the exceptions are handled or handled by the appropriate handler, because we know that there are different types of exceptions and you can write the code to handle each type of exception. You can see class exception thrown is the class name, and in that class there is a method static int divide by 0 of int a comma int b, and int a is equal to a by b, and it is said that this statement will cause arithmetic exception division by 0, because if b is 0 it will cause division by 0 exception. This is the method, and there is another static method static int compute division of int a, and int rus equal to 0 try rus equal to divide by 0 of a comma b. Divide by 0 is the method we saw earlier which may cause a division by 0 exception. That is why you have put here, you have put the code in try block enclosed within try, and there is a corresponding catch. Catch is given for number format exception. So this actual exception that may arise is not at this point. From this method, the int divide by 0 method may cause arithmetic exception. But when you call the method, you are using catch for number format exception, not for arithmetic exception. So what will happen? When if b is equal to 0, here when it goes to the method divide by 0, it will cause exception here, and that is not handled at the method itself. So it comes here. Since it is not handled using the call stack, it will reach here. So here there is the handling try is there, but the corresponding catch is not there. It is not arithmetic exception, but it is given to be number format exception. So that exception is not caught here. It will not be caught here. So in the call stack, it will again go to where this method is called, compute division is called in the main method. See here it is the main method, and here I is equal to compute division of a comma b. At this point here, from the call stack, initially from where the exception occurred, it is not handled. So down in the call stack, the other method which called that particular method, here also that exception is not handled. Then coming back to the main method where the previous method was called, that there also there is an exception handling return, and here there is the arithmetic exception, catch for arithmetic exception is written. So the exception object thrown at the innermost method is handled by the main method. Arithmetic exception is handled here because it matches with the catch here, and so this will be done. Exception object dot get message will be printed. So the output is division by 0. This is how the exception is handled. Uh, Runtime system searches appropriate exception handling code on the call stack. This is an example, and we know that at the very moment when the where the exception occurred, that place there is no appropriate handler. Coming down in the call stack, again it tries to find out a try catch mechanism, but that also does not suit. Then so it comes down to the main method where it matches with the catch, and it will be handled there. So that is the example for exception being handled by the based on the call stack, appropriate handler on the call stack.